Hi, Ben here from Trident Fly Fishing. Today for our inaugural 2019 review, we're going to be reviewing the all-new Sage Payload. The Payload replaces the Bass in Sage's lineup as their mid-price, big bug chucker. This is going to be the perfect rod for throwing anything from big tandem streamers for trout all the way to huge half chickens for muskie. As we always do, we're going to start out by showing you some of the quirks and features on the rod and then get out and cast it and tell you what it's all about. One thing that's unique about the Sage Payload is that unlike virtually every other Sage rod, they've made some changes to the fit and finish on this rod. Starting at the bottom, we've got a fighting butt with a larger section of this composite cork leading into a really cool double up-locking reel seat, and it's got sort of a unique shape to it, and the rings are also really large. I like that. They're a little bit more tactile, easier to tighten. Moving on up, you'll see that this reel seat is also laser engraved like the Sage Salt, and in this case we're casting the 8 weight model, and you'll see it says 8+ on it, and we'll definitely talk about why that plus is there when we get onto the casting portion. Then we've got a full wells grip, which is actually a little bit different than the standard Sage full wells grip. It's a little bit narrower up at the top and just has kind of a different feel in your hand. Not only is it a departure from what Sage usually does, but I actually think it's a really good thing. This grip feels really nice in your hand, and it doesn't feel like you need monster hands to grip this rod properly. I think it'll fit a really wide range of anglers. It's not too thick, it's not too thin. Really nice job on that. Sage has colored this blank with what they call a tannin color. I definitely call it more of a dark bronze, and it looks particularly nice in the sun when you get kind of that sheen reflecting off of it. And it's finished with some nice kind of darker brown wraps with some gold accent wraps. Then we get to the first stripping guide, which is also a little bit of a departure from Sage. We don't have the standard basic Fuji guides anymore. We've got this guide that looks a lot like the Torzite guides that we see on rods like the Douglas Sky. And while if you're seeing these guides for the first time, you might think that they're bent, they actually promote less friction and make it a lot easier to shoot line through them. So good move there, Sage, as well. Once we get past the stripping guides, we've got the standard hard chrome snake guides that we've seen for many, many, many years. Now, let's go out and cast this rod and see if it lives up to the hype. So when we started casting the Payload, a couple of the key features of the rod really became obvious. The first is the 8+. This is definitely not going to be your standard 8 weight, even though it's labeled as such. Sage has gone, even further out of their way to say that this is a 270 to 320 grain rod, which puts it closer to a 9/10 weight. If you're going to be using this rod for flats fishing, which is not necessarily something I would recommend, you're definitely going to want to go up a full line size at least. Some people might even like 2 line sizes up. But we cast the Payload with both an SA Grand Slam taper as well as a Rio outbound short. And it's really clear that it's not a rod that's designed for super accurate, tight presentations. It's really more of a rod that's designed to dump a lot of line out quickly, which pairs really well with short shooting head lines like the outbound short. What was kind of surprising is that at 40 feet, it's really accurate. Outbound short has about a 30-foot head, and I was able to consistently hit the target, which is really cool for a rod that's casting a pretty clunky line. Switch over to the slightly heavy Grand Slam taper, and you almost can't even feel it load at 40 feet. It's just really tough to make those casts without doing a lot of work on your double haul. 60 feet, the outbound short starts to really lose a lot of accuracy. It's just not a line that's designed for technical situations and casting. But what I did like about the Payload is that it's effortless to get line out. So 1, 2 false casts, and you can really cast a lot of line with the rod. And despite its higher than average swing weight, this Payload actually comes in at about 92 gram meters squared, which puts it a little bit on the high side of 8 weights, despite its shorter length. You don't feel that swing weight so much. In fact, I actually thought it felt kind of light, which is a little weird. Definitely a rod that you could cast all day with an outbound short particularly at longer distances and bigger flies. So think pike fishing, largemouth bass, situations where a bigger fly is necessary or you're fighting a lot of wind. As we switch back to the Grand Slam at 60 feet, that's where the rod felt really nice, gained a lot of accuracy with that extra long head. And I think there's probably an application for people who are willing to put the effort in to make longer casts with a longer headed line that's much more technical. Finally, moving back to 80 feet, this is probably one of the better rods I've cast at distance. In fact, I actually like this better for long distance casting than the Igniter, which is Sage's kind of marquee fast action rod. I was really able to dump all the line out at 80 feet, and quite frankly, with the Grand Slam, it's even pretty accurate. Hitting a small target at 80 feet with some wind is no small feat, and this rod can definitely do it when it's properly lined. The Payload retails for $550, which I think is actually a really good value for this rod. It's packed with lots of technology, including their Konnetic Technology, which is what you paid $800 for on the Sage 1 just a few years ago. This 8-weight is going to be the perfect rod for anybody looking to cast medium flies to medium and larger fish. So stripers, albies, largemouth bass, pike, lots and lots of species that this Payload is going to work really well for. Because of its shorter length, it's going to be more of a boat rod than a rod that you're going to want to take on the flats. But in a pinch, you could do it, particularly on those windy days when you just need a little bit of extra muscle. If there's an aspect of the Sage Payload that we haven't covered, you can reach us at the number below or 24/7 at support@tridonflyfishing.com. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to subscribe and give us a like and a comment in the box below. I'm Ben, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.